Three, two, one, and welcome to the Dave and Albert Show. And today we have Clint with us, and we're going to be talking about branding.
Branding.
So,
Why are we talking about branding?
because we have this Symph rebrand.
What?
Yeah. So a couple of months back, actually like almost a year ago, our designers, especially this guy over here, has been pushing for a Symph rebrand. Like I know, sick and tired of the logo. I couldn't even, I couldn't even like figure out why they were so, negative vibes towards our current logo. I liked it, like, and they want to change it.
Yeah.
And so I was like very defensive about it. I was like, why do we need to change it? What's wrong with it? And so they kept pushing, explaining out things, and slowly, like, the brick walls in my mind, they started to crumble. Yeah.
You had brick walls in your head?
Like the defense positions for our existing logo. So now we have a rebrand, and it's launching. So
I think it's interesting because I wasn't necessarily opposed to rebranding, but I understood immediately that it's going to take time and it's a really big process. And so my hesitation on just saying, yeah, let's do this, was more, do we have the capacity to do this right now? Are there other things that are a bigger priority? That was really my framework of thinking.
Yeah, but now, like, do you regret it? Are you happy about it?
No, I'm really happy about it.
Yeah, me too.
And it took a long time. Yeah. So I think that's something that we knew going into it that it would take some time, and part of that is because we could only commit so much of our own capacity to it and to the process. But I would also add that it's just really a process that you have to go through. It's not just, okay, next week we'll be ready to launch our new brand.
It's actually a lot of investment in terms of time, energy, even like decision making, collaborating, arguing, discussions around that. So it's a lot of time investment. So again, we're back to the question of why is it important? So we have Clint here, who led our rebrand in Symph. So from your perspective, like how you told us, why is branding important?
So there's a lot of factors really. Like, in my perspective as a designer, there was a difficulty in like implementing the logo because it lacks the flexibility that we can use. So the biggest challenge for us is we had really inconsistent designs throughout, like our social medias, our presentations. It's like we didn't really had a strong designs case for it.
Okay, let's take a step back. You mentioned a while ago flexibility. Our existing logo didn't have the flexibility, or existing brand didn't have flexibility. What do you mean by flexibility?
So flexibility means like you can use it in like different backgrounds, or like you can resize it. It's applicable to any scenarios. Like for example, like because our logo, it's very difficult because it has a lot of colors. That's the biggest challenge there. With logos with many colors, it's really hard to find a suiting background, especially if your background is like heavy or like it's very detailed. So most likely it's gonna be competing with your logo.
So for example, like we sponsor like an event, right? The event has a poster, they put our logo there, and bang, it clashes.
Yeah,
that's what it is. So it's not flexible in the sense it can be put anywhere. It has to be against the white background or against a specific or a black background. Okay, makes sense. All right.
And then I think you also mentioned it was not flexible in terms of just applying it to different materials. Like if we wanted it on a t-shirt, or if we wanted it in different like applications, it didn't work very well.
Yeah, because the t-shirt printers, you see, they charge per color and with gradients.
And
so that was very complicated. Okay, cool. Okay, so we have flexibility. You're talking about like the strong design case. What do you mean by that?
So one thing difficult for us is like we designers have our own kind of like personality. We add our own personality in it. When we did the identity before with Francis, we didn't really have set rules of like what fonts to be used, like what colors should be used. So there's no strict like branding.
So there were no guidelines actually in place.
So it was a challenge for us, and like when I look at our like outputs, it's really inconsistent. So that's.
And so by inconsistent, you mean like some of our designers would create this material,
like different fonts.
Okay.
Because I would say, if
I did like the diversity of that,
Yeah, but if I recall correctly, we kind of just focused on the logo before. It wasn't, say, the full brand.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good point to bring up, and maybe you can share some perspective from the design side of things. Your brand isn't just your logo, but your logo is part of your brand. So how do you differentiate that, and what does it actually mean, this process of rebranding that you've kind of taken us on this journey? What does that actually mean to someone out there?
Actually, branding is not like the aesthetic value of it. It's more of just like the identity.
Okay.
Branding really is what your personality is. Yeah.
And then the logo just reflects that personality in a sense.
Okay. Or it's just part of it, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like the head in your entire body.
Yeah.
I guess that's like your face.
Your face.
But your hands also come into the picture. The way you walk, the way you talk, that's part of your branding as a whole.
Yeah.
Right? Though your face is a very significant part of that
whole identity.
Yeah, and that's your logo.
Yeah.
So everything spill up on that.
So when you pitched this to us, I realized, okay, this is going to be a deep dive. Are we really going to do this? Is this something, I kind of pushed back. I pushed some questions out of like, is this something we really need right now? Is this a priority for where we are? Why is this important? And you had some good answers. I think you mentioned some of these things. So we then agreed to start. And so talk to us about where we started and what you did, like how we began this identity and rebrand process at Symph. Like what did you do first?
So way back before starting like doing like the process.
Yeah.
Because like I was away for Symph for like a year because like I had to study.
Yeah.
So I definitely had the perspective of seeing the change the company. So that's one thing aside from the aesthetic value of it. So yeah, second is like the aesthetic. So when doing the process, we started with a design sprint. Yeah, so instead of doing it for a week, we did it for like 4 hours, I think.
Yeah.
So it was
very compressed.
Yeah, so we called out like the executives, the leaders.
Right.
Then we did the sprint for 3 hours or 4 hours? So
yeah, I remember this, trying to get all of our input together, putting our ideas out there.
Yeah. It was very intense.
Yeah, and then Clint was just facilitating like the whole process, and we're like arguing and clashing. Yeah. So I remember that.
Hard.
It was hard.
Yeah.
What was hard about it?
Maybe because it's internal. There's a different in handling the client, because if it's client, there's a different.
You're like an external provider, consultant.
I still remember. Like he would try to facilitate, but he was also like strongly attached to it. Like so, if he didn't like what our answer was, he'd like fight and be like, "Why do you think it's like this? Like, why do you?"
Yeah.
So
I think that's the challenge there, because like I'm also like part of it. So
and I would be afraid to like say
really
the
hard to be
answer,
neutral.
because I feel like Clint is like
That's one good point. To just think about if you're going through this rebranding process, like, do you do it internally? There's pros and cons. Do you do it internally? Someone who really understands or knows. And I do think you had an interesting perspective, because as you mentioned, you had been away. So it was like you had been here, you had worked in Symph, you had seen it, and then you went away, and then you saw the change or the differences that had happened while you were away, and then you came back. And so I think overall it was good, and I like those challenges. I think we push for part of that in our culture. Like, we like to be maybe a bit confrontational or a bit direct in just, okay, why do you
we'll have real conversations, right?
Yeah.
Real conversations, not just like beating around the bush, but really like addressing the issues, talking about them, discussing them.
Yeah. So what were the important things for you in that initial design sprint, or compressed design sprint that we did? What were the most important things for you to define, to get like the ball rolling, if you will, on this?
I think the most important there is like really the perspective of it. Because like it's more like I'm a designer, my perspective is different from yours. Like hearing your perspective really opens up more ideas and like making the field bigger for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Cool. I have a question. Like, would you think that this rebranding thing that we went through, this long process, like would you call this a successful?
What do you mean,
like is this a successful outcome for you, like this rebranding that
Yeah, actually I think it is.
Okay.
It's really good, because like I have a lot of people like collaborating in it, so it's really good because it's it's compared to like client handling. It's more of like we set as like a single guy or a team, a small team to handle it. But in this particular project, it's like all of the team members like are collaborating. So
Okay. Now I have a question. Let's take that question a little bit more, a step further. So you see this as a success. What do you think is our what made it a success, and what could have happened that would have made it a failure, but we didn't do, obviously. What were the things that we did right, and we could have failed if we didn't get it right.
Probably like that's a tough question actually. Probably for me, the biggest challenge for me was really I don't really have the necessary set of skills to do everything. So like I really need help. Like we had for our local script, we had someone do it from outside because I can't really do it.
Right.
So yeah, that's probably one thing.
Interesting. Yeah, because I also noticed that like it was a hard process. It was a difficult process. Like it wasn't always smooth, right?
Yeah.
And we had to like go through that.
It wasn't smooth. Yeah.
It was mostly not smooth.
It was mostly not smooth. It
Right.
was really hard.
But I think after all those ones, I think I can say it's I like the outcome. I'm very happy about the outcome. Are you happy about the outcome?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think it was actually the final outcome is better because it was so hard. It was like we kind of had to fight for it. And
Right.
some of the fighting was with each other about the S in Symph.
Yeah, which you'll never see. You'll never see it.
Yeah, you won't necessarily see the history that the S went through, but there was a lot of internal debate. There was even one point where I won't name names, but someone was like, "You need to step in and handle this now because I just can't anymore." And there were like difficult conversations because we really had to face this reality of what is it that we're pushing for and why do we want this, and are we willing to fight over this, like something as simple as one letter, one character.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think branding, you need to get it right and you need to fight for it because it's not just about one person; it's about a whole team, and the whole team has to be on board or that they see the brand that they actually believe in and that they want, and then it really reflects it like to the core. And there's like not just like 80% buy-in, but there's like 100% buy-in.
Right.
And I think that process that we took was like that tug of war of trying to make sure that every stakeholder, every person in the team was represented and they were all bought into the brand.
Yeah.
The whole process was difficult.
I agree.
Yeah.
Even that first design sprint session, I remember we had a long time. We were trying to do the positioning, like, are we a friendly brand or are we an authority brand? And we had to stop and kind of define what we meant when we said friendly and what we meant when we said authority, and give examples of brands like that so that we could better like position, okay, are we closer to this or are we closer to that? And there was a lot of debate around that.
Yeah. Now this is a really long talk already, and it's kind of really long talk about branding. But if we were to summarize everything, like, what do you want to say to people listening to this video? About why is branding important? What are the tips you could give them?
Me?
Well, we're all looking to you right now.
Oh my god.
You led this. You started this thing. I remember the message. It was like, "Hey guys, I just want to
Talk to you,
I want to talk to you if you're open to doing a rebrand for Symph."
Yeah, I think this is a necessary thing, not only for like what people see from us. It's more of like setting an identity for us. Like we first need to know ourselves.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah, I agree with that actually. I like to build on that. Like, take that analogy a step further. Branding is important not only because you need it for outside, but you also need it for inside.
Yeah.
It's like if you were a person, if your company was a person, branding is not just about making a mark out there, but before you can make a mark, you need to find yourself. Find who you are, what you stand for, what you represent, what are the things that you stand for and believe in. Then you go out and make a mark in the universe. So that is like branding is the core of the identity.
Yeah, I agree.
cool.
I agree.
All right. Thank you, Clint,
Thanks,
for
Clint. Thanks for leading us on this journey.
Yeah.
We'll show you more of our new branding in the coming days. But yeah, thanks for leading us on this, and thanks for joining us today and talking about this.
Yep. Bye bye.